lose weight, giving up caffeine,
no smoking cigarettes,
getting a new job, getting more in track with budget,
maybe being more considerate of others,
take better care of myself,
spend less money,
do a better job taking care of my family.
drink less coffee, go with the flow, I guess.
I want to try to be a better Christian.
So every year I usually resolve to make some, but then I don't.
well, I'm so old I don't make them anymore.
I don't even know where the concept came from for making resolutions.
Just seem kind of pointless.
Can't break them if you don't make them. I think it's a new beginning.
I think a lot of it helps us to look at centering ourselves again.
If you want to change something, you just change it whenever. I mean, putting a date on it, I don't know if that really helps it.
Maybe the resolution just sets a direction.
Usually New Year's resolutions are probably only thought up in probably about a week.
that's why 2 months you just kind of give up on them.
I just never really said any that really meant enough to me.
I guess I didn't have the will to finish them.
I think mostly it's like you just kind of forget and you have other things to do.
It's just something that you know you're never going to achieve, and so you say that it's a New Year's resolution, so you're not obligated to do it.
I guess I really haven't had anything which is like important enough to me to where like actually stick to it.
I think we just get bored easily.
You stick to it for about 2 weeks, and then life happens.
Well, good morning. How are we? That was an interesting little clip there. If you don't make them, you don't break them. Maybe it's more of a direction. I'm too old. I just don't make them when I get out. I'm just too old, you know. I'm going to be a better Christian. But the good news, there's a couple good news here. One, I'm not going to ask you to make it some New Year resolution. If you could change yourself, you wouldn't need God anymore. You can't change yourself. The first step to changing is actually laying your will down and saying, I can't do this. And giving our life up. It's not a matter of trying. It's a matter of dying. There's a thought. It's about finally giving up and cashing it in. How many know that it was some years ago where it struck me. You know, trying, it tells me a couple things. That someone's heart's in it if they try. If you don't try anymore, your heart's not in it. But with also in trying, there is this negative aspect. Because at least you can say, well, I tried, even though I failed. I tried. It's a matter of saying, God, get through to me. And help me lay my life down. That I don't live my way. Because it's a setup. That's the Old Testament. The Old Testament is following a bunch of rules. Amen. The New Testament is that Jesus stood in our place and he told his disciples, I'm going to leave, but don't worry, I'm not going to leave you as an orphan, because when I leave, I'm going to send you another comforter who is not only going to be with you, but it's going to be in you to empower you to actually live for the first time. That's the gospel. That's the hope of the gospel. So this, in the journey of my life, give me Jesus. It's a walk with Jesus. How do you like his quote? Consider how precious a soul must be when both God and the devil are after it. What do you think? How many know the devil's after you? God's after you too. You must be pretty important. what's it look like to move forward? It's a brand new year. This is a normal time for us to reflect. It's a simple message today. It's found in Colossians. If you read the book of Colossians this week, there's some great points for the church, for the Christian. You know, the main thing that has to be changed in our life is the way we think, is what we believe. Romans says we become transformed by the renewing of our mind. That means dying to our ways, our thoughts, what we think is right. Here's the passage in Colossians.
I'm sorry, you got it on a different slide.
There we go. Here's the passage. So if you're serious, let's read this together. So if you're serious about living this new resurrection life with Christ, act like it. How do you like this? This is just coming right out with it. If you're serious about it, you know, if you're happy, let your face know it, right? You've heard that one before. You know, if you're happy, just let your face know it. How come you're not smiling? If you are a Christ follower, act like it. Pursue the things over which Christ presides. Don't shuffle along, eyes to the ground, absorbed with the things right in front of you. How many of us get absorbed, consumed with the world, the stuff of the world? Look up and be alert to what is going on around Christ. That's where the action is. God's up to something. How about when something goes bad, quote unquote, that we don't like, say, God's up to something. He's got a plan. Reminds me of, there's Charlie Brown and Linus. They're out on the beach. They're making this nice sandcastle. I mean, it's ornate. I mean, it's beautiful. This, you should, you can see it in the cartoon. I've seen this in the cartoon before. I mean, it's ornate. It's cities. It's this castle. It's this. Then all of a sudden, there's this big wave. Whoosh! And then the next screen, it's all gone. Charlie Brown turns to Linus and says, I know there's a lesson here, I just don't know what it is. How many have said, I know there must be a lesson. I don't know what it is. That's where real faith comes in. Knowing that God is with us. That's where the action is. Don't look down at your castles that are being consumed. Look up. Look up where Christ is. That's where the action is. See things from His perspective. Oh, there's a change. We can't believe them until we first perceive them. Isn't that right? We got to look from His perspective. That's what perspective means. We perceive it as He sees it. Your old life is dead. Turn to your neighbor and say, you know what, your old life's dead. Put your hand right here. This life is dead. This old life is dead. Why do I try to resurrect it all the time then, huh? Then why? What am I doing? What am I doing? Your old life is dead. Your new life, which is your real life, even though invisible to spectators, is with Christ and God. I mean, you know, you're in process. You're in motion. You start telling your old friends, You knew Jesus, let's stand with you. Yeah, sure. I know you. I've seen you. Well, Daryl Grogan, when I did get all ticked off at him, he says, "What's wrong with you, Williams?" Because normally he'd get me ticked off. "What's wrong with you?" And he saw the change in me before I saw the change. Wow. Jesus makes a change in us. When we accept him in and really believe, he does the changing. He is your life. Say, Christ is my life.
Christ is my life.
He is your life. That's what life is. He is your life. When Christ, your real life, remember, shows up again on this earth, you'll show up too. The real you, the glorious you. Meanwhile, be content with obscurity like Christ. Obscurity. You don't fit in. You feel like a misfit. Be content with that. What do you think? Great thoughts to open the year. Great thoughts for our life. If you don't know Jesus, I would just say, start to dive in. Start to ask him in. Say, Lord, open my eyes. And if you do need Jesus, you still need to pray that. Because sometimes we know, but we don't know. A new year, a new you. So the three things that I found in this passage, there's remembering. You remember on The Lion King, where was it Simba?
Simba.
Yeah, the little lion.
That's who you are.
He forgot who he was. Do you know who you are? Remember who you are. We get so into this world, we forget who we really are. Remember. And we need to start releasing some things. Releasing some of the stuff that we've accumulated from the world. Some of the habits. Some of the hang-ups. Some of the hurts. The mindsets. Release. He says, don't be looking down here around you all the time. Look up. We need to release that stuff. And we need to recalculate. We need to focus. Our focus needs to be on Jesus. Set your eyes on him. Set your focus. We need to refocus, recalculate. About every other week or so, my phone needs recalculated. How do you do that? You got to shut her down. It's got to reboot back up because it's gotten infected by whatever. Things aren't. It needs to. It's forgot who it was. You ever do that with your computer? It just kind of forgets. If your computer does that all the time, you might need a new computer or something. Something needs cleaned way off of it because it's forgot who it was. So the first step is what we're going to look at is remembering. This is found in Psalm 42. Psalm 42 is a psalm of Korah. It's called the sons of Korah. You remember Korah in the Bible? Korah was the one that rose up against Moses and challenged Moses as God's man. And Moses didn't know what to do. So the Lord told Moses, go out to this place in the desert. And I want your people, Moses, over on this side, and Korah's people on this other side. He said, okay. And you know what happened? The earth opened up and swallowed them and shut back up. Korah and his followers were gone. That was the end of the disagreement. This was written by the sons of Korah. Can you imagine Do you want your children to hang around the sons of Korah? What if you were in Israel in those days? Do you want your sons to hang around them? They might get infected and swallowed up and die. I don't want that. This is a psalm of the sons of Korah. It's not the complete psalm. It's a great psalm. My soul is dry and thirsts for you. True God is a deer thirsts for water. Their hearts are turning to God. He says, I long for the true God who lives, where can I stand before him and feel his comfort? Right now I'm overwhelmed by my sorrow and pain. I can't stop feasting on my tears. People crowd around me and say, where is your true God whom you claim will save? Where's your God, sons of Korah? And look at this. With a broken heart, I remember times before. When my soul is in the dump, I rehearse everything I know of you, God. We need to remember who God is. Maybe you've never known God up to this. Maybe you've never really been introduced to him. Get to know him. The one true God, the real God. Not the God that other people say he is. The God of the Bible. The God of love. Who has a big heart. Who's looking for you. He's in search of a people that he can shower his love and truth on. Who would open their hearts to him. When my soul is in the dumps, I rehearse everything I know of you. Because when we're in the dumps, isn't this the truth? We forget who God really is. We forget how good he is. We forget. It's like our memory just, I don't know, all of a sudden, we go back to our old ways. It's at those moments. Isn't that true? Next screen. Remember, here are 3 things in our passage that tells us to remember. Your old life is dead. This is Colossians 3, 3-4. Your old life is dead, and your new life, which is your real life, even though invisible to spectators, is with Christ and God. He is your life. When Christ, your real life, remember, shows up again on this earth, you'll show up too. The real you, the glorious you. Meanwhile, be content with obscurity. Some things to remember. There's been a death. Remember, this life, being me at the center, is a dead life. You know it will be a horrible life when you're thinking about how much can I get out of life when it's all about me. Your life is dead. You've died. And then the second point, there's a deposit. Christ is in us. He is our life. Remember we read that? That he is our life? He is in you. There's a deposit. Christ is in you now. When I was just a kid, my mother at times would make cakes or make different stuff, and she would just have a little frosting left over. And sort of maybe to keep me out of her hair, because I was right there, I like food, you see. And she would give me a taste, a deposit, a foretaste of what is yet to come. When we even ask Jesus to come into our life, we get a foretaste. Because what's going to happen? have this dream. Remember the dream of heaven. Remember that you've been given a deposit, that Christ in you is your hope of glory. Talks about that in Colossians chapter 1, verse 17. Christ in you. And there is a death. Remember, you died. Don't keep resurrecting that old life. Remember. Here's some things on the next screen to remember. Remember the sweetness of his presence. Have you ever known Jesus? Have you ever sensed the sweetness of his presence? Go back to those times. Remember that. The Word of God says in Hebrews 13, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. You can have his presence now. Sometimes we have to give up some things to get his presence. Some of us want everything. We want the earth and God at the same time. That ain't going to happen. Remember the sweetness of his presence. Remember your favorite scriptures. Do you have some favorite scriptures? Ones that really meant something to you? Keep them with you. Remind yourself. Sometimes I have to go back to the Bible. I want to read it again. Is it really there? Is that really what it says? Like 1 John 4:4. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Did you know the greater one lives in you? Greater is he that is in. He's in me. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Oh, yes. The greater one lives within me. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That's John 14. Okay, he's the way. He's the truth. This other stuff is false. He's the only life. And he said, no one can come to the Father but through me. Okay, that's what I want. I want this relationship with the Father. Go over your favorite scriptures. Remember the feeling of living for Jesus. Remember that feeling that you had when you lived for him. Remember that that's not fake. That's not false. That was a taste of heaven on earth. And that's what we were supposed to pray. That's what Jesus asked us. Pray on earth as it is in heaven. God really wants to bring heaven down here to earth. Remember the worship songs that made you cry and made you shout. There are certain songs when our hearts that are into it, they made us cry. And there's some songs that we stand up and we want to shout. What are those songs? Get those songs out. Rehearse those songs. I'm into worship songs. Some of the songs that I sing here, that we sing here, I'm into these songs. I play them over and over and over and over and over. They mean something to me. And they get through. It lifts my spirit. It reminds me of who I am. Remember the call that God has in your life. God has a call in your life. And guess what? You can't ruin it. You're not big enough to ruin his call in your life. You can't. What's deeper? Your sin or his grace? You tell me. What's broader and wider and greater? His sin or your grace, or his grace? God has a call in your life. It's still there. Remember who you are. grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Boy, isn't the big deal in life that we have to accept some things? Some of us are fighting everything, including God, including the truth. Well, that's about power and control, isn't it? You and I aren't in control. Living one day at a time. Boy, I think we're trying to live too much at a time, and no wonder we're stumbling all over ourselves. Just live one day at a time, one moment at a time. Enjoying one moment at a time. There's a thought. What would it look like to be present in the moment? The only real time that you have is now.
I read a quote from some actor, I forget his name, said that today is the tomorrow you were worried about yesterday.
That's true. So many of us are looking back and living in the past and all the regrets. And we're looking forward with all the fears that are before our face. And we're missing life now. Live now. Just live now. How do you like this? Accepting. There's that word again, accepting. Up the top was word. Accepting hardship as the pathway to peace. How many know that we've learned so much more through the tough times of life than the sunny days of life? Isn't that true? It gets our attention. The beautiful thing about heaven, every day is a sunny day. Did you know that? It says the sun will never shine there. Every day. I really want to go to this place that every day is a sunny day. Those of us that live in Ohio, we are number 2 of all the 50 states that have the most cloudy days. Did you realize that?
I believe that.
We are number 2. I remember talking to somebody that had just lived over there in Indiana. They said, yeah, when they came to Ohio, man, in this area in Ohio, man, it's a lot different in Indiana. They had sunny days over there. Guess what's number 1 has the least sunny days is Alaska. Ohio is number 2. You're blessed. So accepting hardship
You're blessed.
as a pathway to peace. The sun, the greatest environment is the environment within, not without. The greatest environment is our environment that's within us, not the environment out there. Taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that He will make all things right if I surrender to His will. That I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with Him forever in the next. The best it can be down here is reasonably happy. Yes, I want to burst your balloon. That's it. Remember, we're not home yet. The second aspect of this passage that I want to look at is releasing. Releasing. Some things must be released. In our passage it says, don't shuffle along. Eyes to the ground, absorbed with the things right in front of you. needs to be on him. We've gotten so involved in the world, we forgot who we are. And we're weighed down by all the stuff of the world. The next screen here, let's look at this. To become spiritually healthy, some things must be let go. Here's the truth. Things try to attach themselves to our lives that are just plain trash. Those things need to be kicked to the curb. Other things simply don't have a place in our lives, and those things need to be released. Paul tells us in verse 2 that we are to focus our thoughts on heavenly things. While we do that, we are to avoid getting caught up in all the things in this world that would imprison our minds and cause us to stumble. If we allowed our mind and heart to focus on this world, it is impossible to give ourselves to God. In Colossians, Paul mentions some dangerous distractions that hinder our walk if we hold on to them. I challenge you to read Colossians. There are many things in Colossians that it talks about that Christians carry around with them. And we wonder why we're tired all the time. When I was a Weight Watcher leader, there are different people